Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Deskfrog Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for December 2020. A lot of people have been requesting an update to the Deskfrog Yu-Gi-Oh deck that I had done a while back. It was a really fun deck that focused on the desk croaking playstyle along with building up Tadpole in your graveyard to summon out a bunch of different Deskfrogs onto the field and then destroy all the cards your opponent controls and then hit them for some pretty big damage. I also mixed in the fusion playstyle, which I kept for this update as well. Just a different take on the deck, a very strange take before we got the latest frog support that became the more meta-relevant frog support altogether, but still, that engine still helps with this playstyle, which is to tribute summon out your Deskfrog onto the field and then go for your fusion playstyle. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the main part of the playstyle, we're running 3 Deskfrog. When this card is tribute summoned successfully, you can special summon Deskfrogs from your hand or deck up to the same number of Tadpole in your graveyard. So with your main play wanting for you to set up your different Tadpoles in the graveyard for more and more special summons of your Deskfrog onto the field, getting the 3 of this card onto the field is your priority play in the deck, because then you want to go for your spell card, which is Desk Croaking, being able to use this to destroy all cards on your opponent's side of the field while keeping your setup intact for you to attack into your opponent with the immensely powerful Deskfrogs that you'll boost up with the other cards we run in the deck. If you want 3 of this card, you won't be able to use Desk Croaking otherwise unless you have 3 in the deck. So the biggest weakness would obviously be your opponent banishing one of these cards and you not having resources to use back on the field using this card altogether. For our main setup card of special summoning out Deskfrog, we're also running 3 Tadpole. When this card on your side of the field is destroyed as a result of battle and sent to the graveyard, you can add any number of Tadpole from your deck to your hand, then shuffle your deck. So with it, you have your main go-to setup play, being able to search up more Tadpoles for you to then summon out onto the field, or even more, just use as tribute fodder for your main go-to card, which is your Deskfrog. So with this, it definitely does work very differently, since the fact that it's a level 1 monster, not really mixing with the frogs, which are mostly level 2 aside from Deskfrog. So being able to at least have quick setup in the graveyard is what you want to go for with this card, because then you have more and more plays to go with for your Deskfrogs altogether on the field to use for the tribute summon. For some of the lower numbers of cards, I'm also running 1 Flip-Flop Frog and 1 Beals Frog. Would increase the attack of this card by 300 points for each Tadpole in your graveyard. And Flip-Flop Frog, once per turn, you can flip this card face down, and then when it's flipped face up, you can return any monster your opponent controls hand out to the number of face-up frog monsters you control. So with it, if you have plenty of Deskfrogs on the field, you can bounce cards on your opponent's field back to the hand. And then with Beals Frog, the more and more you have for your setup of Tadpoles in the graveyard, the stronger you will make this card altogether. But you can mix and match the numbers as well. If you want to play for a more old school play style, you can add in a second Beals Frog and take out the 1 Flip-Flop Frog, or you can put in the additional Flip-Flop Frog and take out the Beals Frog. It's player preference at that point what you want to use. Or I'm not running Treeborn Frog in this deck. We had more of a back row lineup for the spell count, so it would not really play well for the Treeborn setup, which also works for powering up our go-to fusion monster D3S Frog. But if you want to run some Treeborn Frogs, these can be the spots you can take out for those also. For some of the more generic Frog engine lineup, we still do run the 3 Swap Frog, just more of the actual setup of being able to special summon this card on the field. And we do run the Totally Awesome just as a more, relevant extra deck monster to go into as well. But once again, this card can be used as the special summon, and then you can just tribute them and this card out using your Swap Frog altogether. And with this card also just being able to set up more water monsters, because with this card, you can discard 1 water monster, so it can also be your Tadpole that you can discard with this card, and then send 1 level 2 or lower Aqua Water monster from your deck or your side of the field to the graveyard, which is just more and more setup you may need of Tadpoles in the graveyard. If you then tribute summon out your Deskfrog and then special summon up to the same number of Tadpoles in your graveyard can be enough just to get 2 more Deskfrog out into the field to use. So Swap Frog is, essentially made for the setup of Deskfrog. It was just used in, like I said, more meta-relevant ways than summoning out 3 giant frogs onto the field. But that's still definitely one of the more fun parts of the Frog deck altogether. I also run still the 2 Dupe Frog, more protection for your other frogs in the deck, especially when you summon this card out in defense position, because your opponent has to attack into this first. And also the 2 Ronin Totem, more special summoning. You can have this card's in the graveyard. You can banish a frog monster from your graveyard to special summon this card. With the Deskfrog, you really don't want to banish these cards unless you have the playstyle to go into using them. But still being able to rely on all these different frog monsters we run makes this that much easier of a card to special summon onto the field to use for either extra deck plays or more tribute fodder as as well. And since Fusion is a big part of the deck as well, I run 3 King of the Swamps, with this card just being the search power for your polymerization. And in the case that one of your Deskfrogs does get banished, you need 3 to summon out D3S Frog. One of your King of the Swamps can at least count for the name, so it's almost like you're running 3 additional Deskfrog in the deck for you to use to cover the Fusion play also. And that is it for the monsters. I wanted to stick to as big of a, pure frog play as I could, aside from the King of Swamps, which are still water monsters and very relevant for the fusion plays. I believe I pretty much nailed it with the pure playstyle. For the spells, I also run the 3 Desk Croaking. You can only activate this card when there are 3 face-up Deskfrog on your side of the field. Destroy all cards on your opponent's side of the field. With this card, it's your main go-to destruction play. You have the 3 Deskfrogs on the field, which can easily be set up with that special summon, and then you just want to rely on this card to destroy all of your opponent's resources. That's why I originally had lower numbers of this card in the last deck profile, but with the consistency I was getting Deskfrog out onto the field, I wanted to max my numbers, because the biggest problem was me just not having this card in my hand to use. All you have to do is have the 3 Deskfrog up, and then you can destroy all cards, and then you have these 1900 attack point monsters, which you can attack into your opponent with. And like I said, there are ways to boost these cards' attack up, and if you have additional frog monsters on the field, that could potentially be game right there, hitting over the 8,000 attack points. For more of the recycle power, I also run 3 Moray of Greed. This one, you shuffle 2 water monsters from your hand to the deck and draw 3 cards. So let's say you need just to set up more of your, tadpole plays. You can shuffle back some tadpoles, hopefully get some more potential draws for you to use for your plays. So the Moray of Greeds definitely do come in handy for that setup. And for more of the attack boost of your lower level frog monsters, I run 3 Wetlands. All aqua monsters level 2 or lower gain 1200 attacks. So with this card, you can also power up your tadpoles on the field. Let's say you just have these set up ready to go. You can summon out tadpole, and it'll be 1200 attack for you with this card. So you can at least still hit damage against your opponent using this card and having Wetlands set up on the field for your go-to field spell. I also have the 1 Terraforming just to search this card out. It's a great card to rely on for powering up all of our different frog monsters that we run in the deck, especially to some pretty high numbers. The only thing it won't do is Beel's Frog, because of the fact that it's a level 3. That's another potential reason you can swap it out for Treeborn Frog or an additional flip-flop frog, which will definitely benefit from the attack boost of Wetlands altogether. For more recycle power of cards like, let's say, Swap Frog and Ronin Totem, I also run 2 Salvage. You target 2 water monsters with 1500 or less attack in your graveyard. Add those targets to your hand. So you'll usually want to leave Ronin Totem in the graveyard, but cards you can set up much easier, like Swap Frog, can be added back to your hand for you to use with your plays, or even just being able to recycle back King of the Swamp to your hand. You can discard it for polymerization, add back to your hand, and then have it be one of the fusion material requirements as well, by recycling it back to your hand for your D3S Frog. I also run 2 Aquarium Stage. Water monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle with non-water monsters, so this can protect Tadpole on the field or any of your low attack frog monsters. And then that's just additional. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can target 1 aqua type monster in your graveyard and special summon it, which the majority of the monsters we're running, including King of the Swamp in the deck, are aqua monsters. So just being able to special summon them back on the field to use, and there's no level restriction with this card either, makes it all the better for sure for a bunch of your different plays that you can do with all the different frog monsters you run. For some of the one-ofs, I also run 1 aquarium set. All water monsters you control gain 300 attack and defense, and also having the same aqua-type monster special summon when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard is just another added bonus. These are the cards that conflict with Treeborn Frog the most, but I still say they benefit more in running these cards because you can just set them up on the field and then have protection against your opponent's plays, whether it be destroying your water monsters by battle and then just boosting up along with Wetlands on the field to very, very high attack points altogether. And for, we were going over the one-ofs as well. 1 Monster Reborn for the special summon resources back onto the field. Like I said, you can be short 1 Deskfrog with your special summon, so just being able to summon it back onto the field from the graveyard means you can then activate Desk Croaking. 1 Foolish Burial. 1 for 1, the Foolish Burial sets up Ronin Totem, and the 1 for 1 can special summon Tadpole out in the field that much faster. And also, for a few more of the fusion requirements, I run 2 fusion deployment. This one is more for the setup of a monster on the field. For your fusion plays, you reveal 1 fusion monster in your extra deck, special summon from your hand or deck one of the fusion materials whose name is specifically listed on that card. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except for fusion monsters. So this is a way just to get, Deskfrog out into the field faster. If you don't have all of the tadpoles set up in your graveyard, let's say you just have the 1 from the 1 tribute of your Deskfrog, you'll get the 1 special summon that way, but then the fusion deployment can at least get your other Deskfrog out in the field for you to activate Deskcroaking and then potentially go into your fusion play also, which the last of the spell lineup for the fusion play we talked about so much is your polymerization. You just need this for the fusion play. There's no frog fusion. I think if we get a card like that, that'll especially be hilarious for something like this, giving support to a deck that hasn't seen support for a good while since the GX format for the actual Deskfrog fusion plays altogether. But that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. We're running 1 of the D3S Frog. The investment with the deck will mostly go to you making this when you just don't want to use your 3 Deskfrogs in the field, with this card's only monster effect being it gains 500 attack for each Treeborn Frog in your graveyard. Still, just a fun play to go into. If you potentially wanted to try the Deskfrog attack after Deskcroaking, you can take out the fusion deployments or the additional Beals Frog or the flip-flop frog for defusion, because being able to defuse into D3S Frog and then go back into your 3 Deskfrogs on the field for multiple attacks is a play to consider, because that could potentially be enough for a game against your opponent after you destroy all their cards on the field. But you'll have to have that hand set up as well, because along with having the fusion play for your frogs, you'll also need to have defusion in the hand to use. But something to consider with everything all together. And then you'll just return this back to the extra deck, which you can fusion summon out again. I also run the 1 Mud Dragon of the Swamp, just an additional fusion monster you can make. With this card, you need 2 monsters with the same attribute, but different types. So the majority of the main deck is Aqua, so you'll have to use some of your extra deck monsters that are basically not the Aqua lineup. So going off of, Coral Anemone, or even your Araya, the Water Charmer Gentle, for those options for summoning out this card with our additional polymerization in the deck. For the Xyz monsters, I run 2 Totally Awesome, another big powerhouse in the deck for sure. I'm not sure if this card's number will change at all with the upcoming ban list, but still something to consider. If you reduce any of the other numbers, you can just run additional numbers of some of the other Xyz monsters, including Cat Shark, along with being a target for Mud Dragon of the Swamps polymerization play. Just a good rank 2 to rely on, along with Cursed Javelin, Daigusto Phoenix, and Downer Magician, using the Xyz materials, then overlaying into this card just for another powerhouse with piercing against your opponent. And for the Link monsters, I run 3 Mistar Boy. Once again, a great way to power up your different frog monsters on the field. If you have this card and your 3 Deskfrog, that can be enough damage right then and there for your opponent after you destroy all their cards with Deskcroaking. I also run the 1 Coral Anemone, more special summoning of your water monsters. Same with Araya for your opponent's water monsters. 1 Barricade Board Blocker for recycling the Wetlands field spell. And 1 Predaplant Vert Anaconda for fusion power up, polymerization send to the graveyard plays. If this card will be hit as well with the ban list, you could potentially put in, Nightmare Cerberus or Phoenix as the spot to fill in. That is if they end up doing anything with Vert Anaconda on the upcoming ban list. But once again, player preference, or just the option to take this card out if that does happen. And then as for some of the go-to plays, if you have your Deskfrog set up in your hand, having your Deskcroaking along with your Swap Frog, and let's say 1 of the Tadpoles for the play, can be all you need to destroy your opponent's cards, so especially useful if you're going second. So what you'll do is you will summon out your Swap Frog by discarding 1 water monster to special summon this card from your hand, and when this card is summoned, you can select and send 1 level 2 or lower Aqua-type monster from your deck or your side of the field to the graveyard. So with this, you can then send your second Tadpole, not taking up your normal summon yet, but having 2 Tadpoles in your graveyard. You can then tribute summon out your Swap Frog to go into your Deskfrog, and when it's tribute summon, you can special summon Deskfrogs from your hand or deck up to the same number of Tadpoles in your graveyard. So you have 2 Tadpoles in your graveyard to use. Then you'll summon out the 2 Deskfrog onto the field, and then you will have your Deskcroaking spell to activate and destroy all cards in your opponent's side of the field, along with the 3 Deskfrog to attack into your opponent to use for that heavy damage we spoke of. You can then also consider, if you want to run any rank 5 Xyz monsters, it's an option fusion play to go into, but I still like just attacking with the Deskfrogs and then potentially going into the fusion play into the ridiculous fusion monster being D3S Frog. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoy the video. The Deskfrog deck is always a fun one of mine to look back on and just update every so often with new cards we've gotten, changes in numbers that I've liked when using this deck, but still a very, very fun one for sure for all frog lovers everywhere. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.